This is a video tour of the 2014 MPAT Excel spreadsheet. In this first video, I'm going to walk you through the basic tabs so you have a general understanding of how this spreadsheet works. To begin with, let's first look here at the Quick User's Guide tab. This tab provides basic instructions for using the spreadsheet and must be read before users begin entering data. The instructions are relatively straightforward and inform you on how you can add data from the household and village surveys. Essentially, the way this spreadsheet works is users are requested to enter the survey data, and the spreadsheet then calculates the subcomponent and component results, the indicators that is. I will use one example to walk you through this process. For now, as we can see here, this provides basic instructions for entering data into the Household tab and the Village tab. Below, there are additional optional instructions for those users who wish to customize MPAT. Lastly, this closes with a section on understanding the results, which is also discussed in the MPAT User's Guide. And finally, an optional step for advanced users. So let's have a quick look at the Household Data tab. This tab, in addition to the Village Data tab, are the most important for users. Essentially, what is required is that you enter data from the surveys using the check score code method outlined in the User's Guide. Here, each row represents data from one household, and they are organized primarily with the household code, as well as here with the village code. The village code here in column K corresponds to this village code, column F, on the village data tab. The first, as we look starting at the left, this provides basic information about where the data from this household is coming from and who was involved, including who the enumerator was, the supervisor, who was involved in the data quality control process, and then some information about the village in particular. As we scroll to the right, we see more information on when the survey was conducted, how long it took, and other information that is collected at the top of the MPAT household survey. As you can see, these two columns, A and B, are locked so that as you scroll through, you can still see which household you are entering data for. Given that this spreadsheet calculates the results as they are entered, it is suggested that users use the data entry template in order to allow staff to enter the data. Once the data are entered, they can be copied and pasted into this spreadsheet. Again, instructions are provided here on the Quick User's Guide tab. Here on the Household Data tab, as you can see, there are columns that correspond to each question from the household survey. For example, the first question, can the head of the household read a newspaper, is question 1, corresponding here to column U, marked as question 1. And for this first household, the response entered is 1, which corresponds to the answer no. No, the head of the household cannot read a newspaper. The Village tab for data entry is structured in the exact same way. On the left-hand side, we see here where the data comes from, and then here we see the date of the survey, and then once again here columns correspond to each of the questions on the village survey. You might notice that these columns are color-coded. This color coding corresponds to the different components. So let's take a quick look at the remaining few tabs. The next tab is the Values tab. This basically provides the behind-the-scenes workings of how the indicators are calculated. So the data here is organized by the MPAT components and in turn their subcomponents. So let's stay with the same example of the first question from the household survey. This question is about adult literacy, and we can see that this fits into the non-farm assets component and specifically the subcomponent on employment and skills. Here we see question 1. And this tells us which answer code corresponds to which value. Again, 10 being the high value and 1 being the low value. So in this case, if a respondent answers, if the response is 3, that they can read without difficulty, this receives a high score of 10. So this information is provided for all the questions. And as you can see, sometimes the responses are in different scales, here like hectares or minutes or ratios. Again, the user is only required to enter the data, but we strongly recommend that you consult also this tab to understand how the responses are being assigned values. This information is also provided in the annexes of the user's guide. The next tab is the weights tab. This shows similarly how the information for each household is aggregated or combined into the subcomponents and then the components. Taking the same example, let's scroll down, and here we see under non-farm assets the subcomponent employment and skills. We see this score is derived from 3 questions, 64, 65, and question 1. And the standardized MPAT suggests a weighting of 25% for question 1, meaning for each household, the response provided from this question contributes to 25% of the value of this subcomponent. We can then scroll to the right and see in turn how these 3 subcomponents are combined using these weightings to give us the value for the component as a whole. So let's see what this looks like more concretely. If we go to the next tab, the Household Results tab, what this shows us, once again, each row is one household, and this is showing us the results for every individual household. So the top row, we see the results for household 1, and as we scroll to the right, and this is again organized here by the components and their respective subcomponents. If we scroll over to the non-farm assets and the employment and skills, we see a value of 21.3. Again, the lower values reflect a poor situation, and the maximum value is 100. This is really just the same as 2.13, since previously we were using a scale of 1 to 10, and now we're simply using a scale of 10 to 100. If we continue to scroll through the right, we see for each household the results for all of the 10 components. Now, this data is very interesting to make comparisons at the household level, but of course we're also interested in village level results. If we go here to the Village Results tab, what we see, and I'm going to zoom out just for a moment to provide a larger overview, we see here in the top left some basic information about where our data comes from. The number of households surveyed, what percentage were male respondents or female respondents, how many were female-headed households, etc. Here we see the average values for all of our subcomponents. This provides the average value and the minimum and maximum values. On the left, we see a summary of those component values. So here we have subcomponents and here we have components. And here in the top right, we have what's called a radar graph, which provides an overview of the component scores for the village in question. Here at the top left, by choosing from this drop-down menu, we can select other villages to load their results. So let me now select Village 2, and as you can see, it will automatically update those results. And here we see now the legend shows this is Village 2. In this case, we have only loaded the Excel spreadsheet with data from 2 villages, so a total of 60 households, to allow users to get a better understanding of how it works. Of course, before you begin, you will want to clear this data. When you have more data, this will be more useful in that it will show you how each individual village compares to the average results for all of them. Lastly, we can go to the All Results tab, which is the same format as the Village Results tab, but this provides a summary of all of the data in our spreadsheet. In this case, a total of 60 households. As discussed in the user's guide, since this is Excel, users can easily select cells and copy and paste in order to do their own comparisons across different villages or projects. In the following videos, we will go into more detail about how this spreadsheet works.